The new Batman theme from The Batman from 2022 sounds so much like Imperial March. I was waiting for the beat to drop. I was like, oh my gosh, it reminds me of Imperial March so much. It was perfect for this new Batman. And on this episode of Movie Breakdowns, we're reviewing The Batman from 2022. What's up, world? Welcome to another episode of Movie Breakdowns. I'm your host, Ali Zakka. And before we get started, if there's a movie you want me to review, let me know. Please put a comment section below and I get to it as best I can. And also with Patreon.com/Ali Zakka. And for $2 a month, get a cut in front of everybody, get your review out way before it comes on Facebook and YouTube. Get other content like trade reaction, trade reviews. Now, let's go ahead and get into today's episode of The Batman 2022. And because this is a brand new movie, it just came out this weekend. This first half of the review is going to be spoiler free, and then the second half will be spoiler filled. So, what is this movie about? This movie is about the Batman who is trying to hunt down a character by the name of the Riddler. He is in the trailer, and as he's trying to hunt down this guy, the Riddler is also going on a killing spree and leaving plans and clues on how to find him, as well as reveals Gotham's corruption. And Batman has to stop this character. That is pretty much the gist of the movie. And it is a whodunit movie because you're trying to figure out who the Riddler is, how to get to him, how to find him. And it is, for the most part, pretty solid. I enjoyed this movie. I enjoyed it a lot. This movie is 2 hours and 56 minutes long, and I did check myself looking at my watch throughout the movie to see where were we at in the movie, what certain scenes and times and spot checks in the movie. I was like, okay, we're at this mark. What has happened? We're at this mark. What has happened? Okay, that just happened. Well, where are we going from here? Like, I did check it, and I will say that an hour into the movie, I found myself like, wow, only an hour gone past this so far. Like, this movie moves fast. This movie to me did move fast. Like, and there are scenes in this movie where I actually perked up in my seat. I was watching it. I went to the theaters and watched it, and things happened. I was like, okay, I am now intrigued. You had me at hello, but now you got me at intrigued. And this movie, by the way, the things that I liked, they make Batman scary. Batman is terrifying in this movie. Like, he's not just, oh, he's the face of fear. Like, this movie portrayed the face of fear so much, where you actually get the fear of the villains and the people who are doing crimes. You get to see how they're reacting to Batman. It's not just like he shows up and he's like, oh, he's the face of fear. No, it's like the things he's doing and the music tones in this movie is another thing that I like. The music tones in this movie, where they did like the scary horror movie themes and tropes, where like Batman would show up, but there's the eerie squeaking sound. All of a sudden, there he is, the Dark Knight, like vengeance. But those things are playing on the screen to make Batman seem like a very terrifying character, not just a guy in a suit, but an actual just menace to crime. And it is terrifying. There are scenes in the movie where I was like, I don't want to see Batman ever in my life. If I see Batman, I'm not doing life right. I'm in the wrong spot. In the wrong spot. Help me, please. That's how I felt watching the Batman. It is perfect with the way they written Batman, and Matt Reeves, the director, and the way he not just written but used tone and used set pieces, used color and lighting, where it makes Batman seem like a terrifying character. And not just for one scene, but for multiple scenes in the movie where he is hunting down people, and you're just like, yeah, I'm good. Oh, you want to go rob things? No. Do you see who's out there flying around? You see a light in the sky? I'm not going out there. I'm going to go to school. I'm going to become a lawyer. I'm going to go to school. I'm going to be a doctor. I'll get myself out of Gotham. I'll make a living in Metropolis. I'm not about this life. Like, if I live in Gotham as a villain, I would change my life around so quick because I'm not dealing with that. The nightmares you have from this Batman, it's not worth it. But yeah, the way they written Batman in this movie was so good. I love the way Batman was written. And not just Batman, but Bruce Wayne. In this movie, you get Bruce Wayne, but you get Batman 90% of the time. Like, this movie is mostly a Batman movie. And Bruce Wayne is when Batman is in as Bruce Wayne. And I say it like that, when Batman is as Bruce Wayne, he's still in Batman. Like, Bruce Wayne is the mask, Batman is the persona, like, which that's been dealt with in comic books and TV shows, and it's good to see it put on the big screen. Another thing that I like, I already talked about the music. The music is really good in this movie. Like, the original score for this movie is solid. The Batman theme that is created by Michael, and I'm about to mess this dude's name up. I want to say it is Michael Giacchino, who did the Batman theme in this movie. Like, it was so good. And I'm only talking about things that are in the trailer, because the theme is in the trailer. And matter of fact, there's a few scenes in the trailer that I've seen in the full scene in the movie. I was like, I must love hallway scenes, because that scene was solid. And seeing the Batman uses tools and things like that with the soundtrack, just perfect. Another thing I like is the detectiveness in this movie. Batman is actually trying to solve a crime. He is legit using things like a detective. He is more in detective mode in this movie, probably 80% of the time. And then you have the action stuff, but he is more detective Batman, and he's trying to figure out who did it and how to solve this crime. It is a whodunit film, crime film, and that's actually what IMDb calls this movie as well. It calls it a crime film, because that's what it is, a crime action film. And I just think they did it right. I think they written it right. And another thing I like is the fact that they did not, and I repeat, they did not redo the Batman death story again. And I love that. We've seen it 1,000 times. We don't need it again. And I love the fact the movie is already established that Batman's Batman. He's been here for a while, and we're just getting it. Dislikes. My dislikes in this movie. There's only really one thing that bothered me in this movie, and that was the line Zoe Kravitz was given for Catwoman. Like, some of the lines she was saying in this movie, and there's a particular scene that I can think of, and I'll talk about in the spoiler section, where she just sounds like a standard comic book protagonist lines she was giving out. She just sounded like a standard protagonist from a comic book movie that we've seen these lines given, and I will say this, Zoe Kravitz delivered it with all her heart. Like, she gave it 10%, 110%. But the line she was giving in this movie, I felt like for certain scenes, I was like, yeah, we've seen your character before. That's the only thing that bothered me. Like, other than that, Batman's lines, I feel like Batman in this movie was different from the other Batman, so he was more of a unique version of Batman in this movie. Alfred was written differently, and Gordon was written differently. So, like, those lines I didn't see in other movies, but when it came to Kravitz's characters, Selena came to Catwoman, I just felt like her lines that Catwoman had was like, y'all couldn't give Catwoman better lines, and that doesn't fall on Zoe Kravitz. That falls on more of the writers in this movie. When it came to that, I was just like, guys, really, we're doing this again? We're doing that? We're pulling that card as well? Like, I'll talk about that in the spoilers section, but those lines, I was like, y'all gotta give Catwoman a little something else. Give her something a little more. Other scenes of that, she was fine, but that scene there, I was like, that's my only nitpick, really. It's just that the lines that Kravitz is given for Catwoman just seems regular. Like, it didn't seem anything new. It's like we had it before, and I was just like, it's 2022. We have had so many superhero movies at this point. I get certain storylines are etched in comic book lore and stuff like that, but you really could deliver that a little bit better than the way they deliver it in this movie. That's my only nitpick there. Let's go ahead and get into the cast and director. So this movie just came out, it's opening weekend, so it literally just came out, so I don't have all the budgets and box office and numbers like that, but you guys can go find that later. But the director is Matt Reeves, who I'm not sure if he'd done a horror movie before, but he did add some horror vibes to this movie, so good for him. But he delivered the action and gave the perspective of Batman being a detective more than anything. I do feel like there's certain parts of the movies where characters, because this movie's 56 minutes long, but he had it where certain characters will show up and just disappear for a long period of time, and characters show back up, and you're like, where have you been at this time? Or you just conveniently happen to be here at the same time as this character. Like, certain scenes happen where I'm just like, okay, sure. I feel like you just need to write this character back into the movie, so now you're doing it, or, well, we gotta figure out how to make this twist come back around. And then the third act, to me, I felt like is where I almost like, how you written yourself into a wall here, into a corner. How you gonna get out of this scenario? And I do give props to him, giving it where Batman actually does save people. That's something you do get to see in this movie, that Batman does save people, which I'm like, good, because most superhero movies, you don't get them saving actual people in danger, getting people out the way. You see them add more to it as movies go along. But yeah, this one, like, they actually show him saving somebody and saving a few people, so I give him props on that. But really, there's a lot of stuff going on in this movie I felt like he was all over the place a little bit with, but did a consistent good job with it though. But the horror vibe of it, I thought he did a good job with it. Good job on the horror vibe. He's also the writer. Matt Reeves is the writer as well. And Bill Finger, who created Batman, gotta give props to him. And then Peter Craig also helped wrote this movie. Let's go ahead and get into the main cast. Robert Patterson as Bruce Wayne. I thought Robert Patterson did great. No complaints. When people was like, oh, he's Batman, I was like, okay, we'll see how this turns out. I don't knock a person for getting a certain role. See how to deliver. And Robert Patterson delivered just as fine. He did a great job being Bruce Wayne. And matter of fact, this version of Bruce Wayne was unique. I'm happy about it. I'm proud of that. And his Batman was solid. Great Batman. Solid. Solid. His mannerisms, him just showed up in a room, walking next to people, freaking amazing. It reminded me of Batman from anime series, from Justice League, from the Batman anime series, where Batman would show up and people would be like, so, is he gonna do this all day? Is he gonna be in the corner like that? Am I supposed to be, okay, sure. So, about my life here, should I be worried about the dude in the bat hat? What's he doing? Like he was just sitting there. I love it. I love how people reacted to him. And the cast around Robert Patterson when he showed up in rooms as Batman looked so organic. It just fit right. It just fit. So Robert Patterson, good job with him and his mannerisms as Batman, solid. Zoe Kravitz as Selena Kyle, who is Catwoman. She did great. Like, I think Zoe Kravitz did great delivering Catwoman, being the character Selena Kyle, being the character who, like, independent and knows what she wants and gonna do what's for her and her friends. I just don't like some of the writing pieces they gave her. I think they could have waited a few things for Selena Kyle as a character, but Zoe Kravitz delivered, the performance she delivered was great. Jeffrey Wright as James Gordon, who's the lieutenant in this movie. I loved him. I thought he was great too. Thought he did a good job. Colin Farrell as the Penguin. I thought Colin Farrell did a great job as well. And I won't reveal who the Riddler is because the trailer don't reveal who Riddler is. It's just know that it is the Riddler in this movie. But then spoilers. And Andy Serkis as Alfred, because he is in the trailer. I thought Andy Serkis did a great job as Alfred. And there's a scene where Andy Serkis and Robert Patterson, Alfred and Bruce Wayne had a talk and a moment there, and I was like, this is awesome. Like this acting is top tier. Like it's great. And I feel like the whole cast delivered. They went 110% in this movie, and they didn't give a rat's butt about what people would think, and they went all in, and great for them. Any other thoughts? There is some humor in this movie, kind of like dry humor. There's certain scenes where like observation humor, where things happen and the character I guess react a certain way, and you get that from like what's going on in the crowd. I was watching the movie with laughed at certain parts, and there's certain parts of the movie that I didn't laugh at, other people laughed at. But yeah, there is some humor in this movie. I see more dry humor than anything, but it does deliver. Colin Farrell as the Penguin probably adds a lot of that humor when he's on screen. But yeah, that's the other thoughts there. Other than that, that's all my thoughts for The Batman. Is this a Friday night movie? Is this movie you should see in theaters? Yes, you should see this movie in theaters. And yes, this is a Friday night movie. Great in time. I'm going to grade The Batman for 2022. I'm going to grade this movie a B+. It gets a B+ for me, an 89%. Not all the way 100%, not all the way 90%. I think if I rewatch this movie again, I probably would probably get a little bored of certain scenes, but watching the first time here and just like being like all in, and then the third act for me, and this is, I ain't talking about this in my dislikes, but the third act for me kind of drops off a little bit, and I kind of wonder like where they're going to go with this. Like there's a part of the movie I felt like it should have ended there, and it was like, haha, screw that, we're going another step. So I felt like that third act really was like, we didn't really need it, but you know, it also kind of drove home what Batman is, so I can't get mad at it. But at the same time, I was like, alright, how this is going to end off? How are we going to finish this? But other than that, like, this movie is a solid movie. I had a good time. I enjoyed myself. I was on the edge of my seat at certain scenes. The scene that's in the trailer, actually, the car scene, the racing scene, that scene, the chase scene was phenomenal in theaters. It was great, and the music behind this movie is solid. Gosh, the music is great. Phenomenal. But some of the writing parts, as far as like character motivation, what characters do, certain things like that, and that third act really kind of like, and writing the lines for, like, for example, Selena Kyle's character, I was like, we had these lines before, we didn't really need it again, but it is what it is. That is probably a dislike now, the third act, but I'll probably talk more about that in the spoiler section, because it's a spoiler, that whole third act will be a spoiler, but that third act kind of really fall off where I gave it a B+. So this movie gets a B+ for me. If you've seen The Batman, what did you think? Please put in the comment section below. Other than that, stick around for the spoilers, and see you next episode of Movie Breakdowns. Spoiler time. Let's go and get into it. So the Riddler is played by Paul Dano. That's the Riddler. So the Riddler actually is one person in this movie, and when it comes to spoilers in this movie about the Riddler, is that, like, yes, you don't see the guy at all, but what he's doing, you don't see the dude's face, I would say, for a majority of the movie until like the last 30-40 minutes of the movie. But he is hunting down like people in political power, people, the DA, the mayor, people who have power in Gotham, who've been going to the Penguin's nightclub and also going to the underground of the nightclub where all the mobsters hang out as well. So all these connections are happening, and the Riddler is ratting them out. So the Riddler is not only ratting them out, but he's also killing them and leaving these letters for Batman to figure out how to solve the next murder before it happens. And Batman is trying to beat Riddler at his own game, but the Riddler constantly keeps beating Batman at it. And also another thing about that, this is year 2 for Batman. Like, he's been Batman for about a year and a half, probably the second year, middle of the second year, and he's keeping notes, which is kind of cool about it. Like, he keeps notes like, okay, this has happened on this day, this happened on that day. But with that being said, Batman is actually not as smart. He hasn't experienced everything yet. So he is learning, but he's making mistakes along the way when cracking some of these clues. So the Riddler's beating Batman to things that Batman, you'll think, would have figured out beforehand. And I like about that. And one, it shows Batman that like he is vulnerable, and also it shows that one, he needs help. Alfred jumps in and helps him out on how to crack a case. Gordon helps him as well trying to crack a case. So I like that. They actually mistake Pigeon as being the rat, and Pigeon's like, I'm not the rat. Like, why would y'all think I am the rat? Like, who? It's not me. What the heck? And the rat ended up being the guy that was working with the police department and also working with the mob boss, and supposed to believe to have gotten Thomas Wayne murdered is no other than a guy by the name of Carmine Falcone, who I don't remember him in the comic books. I don't even know who he is, to be honest, but he's played by John Turturro, who is in the Transformers movie. I kept recognizing the guy. I recognize this guy. And he's been like working with the police department and working with the mob bosses and making sure that, you know, everything runs, and he's been the underground dude holding this all together, ratting out certain people. So Riddler is pretty much ending his plans and ruining his plans. At the same time, Batman and Riddler is kind of teaming up with each other to rat out the dirt in Gotham, the corruption in Gotham, but the Riddler's going about it the wrong way, and Batman's like, yo man, we're not doing this right. And the Riddler actually was under the impression that him and Batman were teammates. They were always working together, and Batman's like, no, they're working together. You are a madman. You're doing all these things, hurting people, and I am trying to stop you. Like, killing people is not the way to reveal their corruption. And the movie starts off that way too. It starts off with the Riddler leaving the trap, leaving the first riddle, doing the first murder. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed Paul Dano, by the way, as the Riddler. I'll go back around as far as the Riddler, because there's a scene in Arkham Asylum where Paul is like delivering this very psychotic, very like real life murder, serial killer vibes, and he's like having this whole talk about like how him and Batman and how the plan should have went and this, and Batman's not following the plan and everything's out of whack, like he's losing his mind and crying, and Batman's like, what the heck? And you can show how psychotic the character of the Riddler is. Like, I thought it was so good. And the Riddler almost had Batman fooled that he knew who Bruce Wayne actually is, until he says we to Batman, like, we could have had Bruce Wayne, we could have had, you know, this and this. And that's when Batman was like, oh, he doesn't know who I am. But Batman was for a moment thinking that the Riddler knew who he was. And on top of that, to add to that, with the Riddler and Batman, Batman's expressions change. You can see it. He's staying in the shadows, but he can see his expressions change. I like how Robert Patterson did that to convey that, oh shoot, he might know who I am. Like, I love that. I love that, because there is a part of the movie where, and they would have dove in this a lot more, been kind of cool, but the Riddler was trying to hunt down Bruce Wayne, but couldn't get Bruce Wayne. He ended up getting Alfred, but the reason why, because Batman was off doing things. If he was in his own spot, he might have got. And before I move off of the Riddler, and before I move off of like that story plot, I do want to mention there is a scene in the middle of this movie that could have been like a after credit post scene, and I'm not sure who said it, whether it was Andre the Black Nerd or Jamie Johns. It definitely wasn't Chris Stuckman. It definitely wasn't Defocus Lens. But they said like there's a scene that happened in this movie that could have been a post-credit scene, and sure enough, it could have been. I've seen the scene. The Joker is in this movie. He is in Arkham Asylum along with the Riddler, and they're having a conversation like in the last, I don't know, 20 minutes of the movie 20 minutes of the movie where you're like, that could have been a post-credit scene, but I'm glad we're getting it in the actual scene. So we probably will get the Joker in the future, and it's probably going to add more to the series here. And then let me get to Selena Kyle, Catwoman. The line she had in this movie, like there's a scene where her and Bruce Wayne, or her and Batman, are on like the lookout, and Selena is telling him that Falcone is her father, and I'm just like, of course, the villain in the movie is her father. Oh, okay, wow, we went here. And it's probably like in the actual comic books, I'm gonna assume yes, But at the same time, I'm just like, we really had to pull that line in this movie. And Selena Kyle just sounded like a regular protagonist or the anti-hero in a movie where they're like split between the good and bad side. Like, that's my father, that's why I want to get out the crime life. Like, to me, I was just like, okay, sure, whatever, it's fine. It's fine. And then the relationship between Catwoman and Batman, I just felt like in this movie, because they are a thing. They are a couple in the comic books, and Batman falls for Catwoman, like the bad girl who refuses to do good but wants to do good, and the too good justice guy, straight laced kind of dude, but who's also a little crazy. Like that whole storyline, and I just felt like it was so forced. Batman seen her, you can see immediately, like he's like, dang, she's hot. And she ended up making the move on him in the movie, which I guess Catwoman, just being the environment she's in, so she know what she wants, she's gonna take it kind of person. But at the same time, I was like, who does that? Who just like, oh, I seen you once or twice, I'm gonna make the move on you. We know there's no romantic vibes sitting here. They're just like, I'm gonna reach up and kiss you. I was just like, why? Okay, sure, fine. But other than that, like, I feel like Selena Kyle was fine. I think Zoe Kravitz did a great job with her acting in this movie and bringing Selena Kyle to life as well. But the writing for Selena Kyle wasn't the strongest for me, and I really wasn't a fan of it. I like romance, but I want to be more organic versus just thrown in your face. So that's one of my little about the movie. And the ending, the third act there. So the reveal of Falcone getting caught and Batman's fighting people in the club, and the lights go out and you fighting Batman fighting people with bullets and everything, and all the time you see Batman's lights showing up. Great. And then like Catwoman and Falcone fighting each other, and Catwoman trying to make the decision of whether or not she wants to kill her father and go down the dark wrath, or don't kill her father and turn, try to change here and listen to Batman and make that change. Like, I like that. That was a great ending. And then the Riddler kills Falcone after like everything about to be brought to light, and you're like, oh shoot, okay. And they finally catch the Riddler, who obviously after everything's been done, he goes down, get a cup of coffee, and gets pulled up and get arrested that way, which I thought was brilliant. I thought that it's in the trailer, but I thought that was a interesting way to end it all, and have Batman meet the Riddler in prison and let it be. But no, they had to add a third act. They had, the third act, that was part of the third act, beginning of the third act. They had to add, you didn't know? You didn't catch the last riddle? Oh, how dare you? You're not as good as I thought you was, Batman. You wasn't smart. You're not as smart as I thought you was. How you not catch the last riddle? Tell me, Batman, what's black and blue all over? You. And the last riddle, in which was a very elaborate place to reveal it, was underneath his carpet. But yes, seven trucks laid out throughout the city, which the city kind of reminds me of New York. This Gotham City version was like based off New York. And the pillars buzz and it starts flooding Gotham City. And I was like, okay, we now have a natural disaster created by a villain. How is this going to play out? And rushes everybody into Madison Square Garden or Gotham Square Garden. And you have another whole plot points here where the Riddler has an army of Riddlers now, influencers, he's using social media, and people are following behind him because he's going on social media and putting his influence out there, and people are buying into it. So they are going to Gotham to make a mass murder, and Batman stops them and everything, which is a cool fight scene. Like, it's kind of cool how they do it. But I was like, this whole scene is just, I felt like it was just so much that added on to that didn't need to be added on to at the end there. I was just like, this whole act, even though it's action set, and I love some good action, I just felt it was unnecessary. I just felt it was unnecessary. And I was like, okay, Batman, like, they didn't have to do the whole flood. They could have done Batman fight the army of Riddlers at the end of the movie, and him using the it's not an EpiPen, but it's in the video game where you inject yourself to make yourself get more energy boost. I can't think of what it is, but it's always done in video games where you inject yourself with a pen to try to get a little burst of energy and adrenaline rush. And Batman does that in this movie. And I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. But you could have literally had Batman jump in and fight the army of Riddlers and them save, you know, the mayor, the new mayor, all this stuff without having the flood. The flood part to me was just unnecessary. But that's another spoiler that to me, I was like, that's unnecessary. I just didn't have to happen. But other than that, like, I feel like everything else in the movie was solid. I think the opening scene with Batman's hunting the villains, hunting the criminals, and they're like running because they just look every shadow he might appear. And then when he does show up in the shadow and fight the gang, I was like, oh my gosh. And there's a kid that this might get brought up in another movie, but there's a kid who Batman kind of looks at, like, the kid didn't get quite yet initiated to the gang. He had like half a face painted, and everybody else had full face paint, so I guess he was halfway initiated. And Batman kind of stopped him from mugging this guy, and the kid looks at Batman and runs off. And it kind of makes me wonder if that kid would turn around and become somebody because that night with Batman. And I was curious to see what the movie's going to bring it full circle, have him reappear in this movie. It doesn't. There is another kid that shows up a lot that reminds Bruce Wayne of his past a lot. This kid is now a fatherless kid because his father was a mayor that got killed by the Riddler. And Batman will see him like, oh, he's a kid who now doesn't have a father. And he sees that kid, and every time you see him look at him, you kind of see him like, you can see the reflection he's going through his life about, I know how it feels to be that kid who lost his parents. And there is a whole I gotta find my parents killer aspect in this movie where I just felt like Bruce Wayne for a moment there was so gullible. He talks to Falcone, who says that Thomas Wayne, his father, had the Riddler put some stuff to light. His father hired him to murder a guy. And Bruce Wayne's like, what am I doing this for? My father's a murderer. Alfred, how can you tell me? And then Alfred's like, no, your father made a mistake, told Falcone to get the dude off my case and off his case. And Falcone went too far. Thomas didn't know he was going to do that. And Thomas said he was going to bring Falcone's information out to light. He doesn't care he had to do time. He doesn't care about the election. He just wanted to protect Martha Wayne. And Falcone apparently hired somebody to kill Thomas Wayne. It was just a coincidence, or Alfred put it was a coincidence because that same night when Falcone was told that Thomas was going to put everything to light, he ended up getting murdered. And Falcone told Bruce that some guy named Maloney had some beef, and Maloney's gonna put everything to light, so he murdered Thomas. So Bruce just like bought both stories immediately. I was like, bro, come on, man, like, you should know better. You should know better. And talking to Alfred, of course you take Alfred's word because he grew up with Alfred. Alfred loves Batman, loves Bruce Wayne, and Bruce Wayne loves Alfred. So you get that storyline there, like, kind of sweep beneath the rug real quick, where that's like a resolution happening so quickly. Bruce Wayne's like, okay, well, we gotta stop Falcone because he's the one who's causing the beef, not the Riddler. And then the Riddler just shows up at the end, kind of bloop that whole situation. Any other spoilers I want to talk about? Not really. I do like how they show Bruce Wayne is very, like, he's not invincible, and he wears bullet shield clothes, so he does. Anytime he takes bullets, he just walks through them. But like he jumps off a building and kind of does like a glider into like a I guess free falling glider, parachute glider, and he doesn't stick the landing, and he like hurts himself. He gets up, walk around like, that hurts, and he walks it off. But I was like, oh, okay, he is vulnerable. Like, I like the fact the movie showed that Bruce Wayne can get hurt. And matter of fact, it happens multiple times in this movie. Like, he takes a shotgun to the chest and he is struggling. But one thing I did think to myself watching is like, why don't we ever shoot him in his like mouth area? Like, his face is covered, but his mouth is not. Like, why ever target his jaw? Ever. That was a thought of mine. But any other thoughts? Selena Kyle's storyline, what brings her into the movie, her friend, Annika got wrapped up into the main storyline with the Riddler, and Annika was going to tell what's going on with the mayor, and they kind of gave her hush money to shut her down so she can't tell. And then Falcone ended up murdering Annika, who is, of course, Selena Kyle's best friend, if not her lover, because she called her baby a few times, and I wasn't sure there was a relationship or not. It doesn't really establish. It doesn't say. I don't know, but anyway, Selena Kyle really cares about Annika, and she wanted to figure out who killed her and why they killed her, and her and Batman trying to figure out who's next in the crime by the Riddler, and kind of find out Falcone's kind of just been the circle of all of this, and that's how you get Falcone and Selena Kyle fight each other, and Selena Kyle shows up to take money from Falcone at one point, which involves the Penguin, and then the Penguin runs away from Batman at one point in the movie, and Batman chases him down in the Batmobile, which is a pretty cool scene, and a very, like, the ending of that scene where Batman is walking up to the Penguin upside down, and they're showing Batman walk to you upside down. So good. So good. That's in the trailer too. Like, if it wasn't in the trailer, it would have been perfect. But yeah, no, it was a solid movie. I enjoyed it. You know, I had some gripes in here in the spoiler section, but I enjoyed this movie. I really did. I gave it a B+. If you guys seen the Batman, this is the end of my spoiler section. What spoilers? You can't really put in the comment, but give it a 2 weeks or so and then put it in the comments. But other than that, thank you guys for watching this episode. I really appreciate it, and keep being awesome. Thank you so much for making it to the end of this video. I really appreciate that. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. If there's a review you want me to watch or do, let me know. Please put it in the comment section below this video. Also, you want to watch the last episode movie breakdowns, it's right there. Just gotta click on it and you'll be able to watch it. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. Love y'all, and keep being awesome.